This is part 2 of the recovery times video. I just had more to say than I thought I needed. Hope you enjoy it, but definitely watch it to the end. It's important. Now, what we're looking at here is we're working out a plan that you can use for all your diving to be able to make your dives safer. That's what we're looking at here. You know, it's like a risk assessment sort of thing, and this is our handling to handle those things. Now, those 3 things, if handled correctly, will get you set up for a good dive. Okay, now you'll probably see here that having a dive computer is very important once you start putting the time in. You know, once you start getting longer dives. Why? For a start, how do you know 3 times your dive time? So your dive time's a minute. Now you're not counting seconds off for 3 minutes. Get what I'm saying? So at the point now you're getting into having a minute or more dive time, get yourself a computer. Now there are quite a few computers on the market. I've got a stack of them here, just grabbed out of the cabinets. You know, your Sunto, your Oma, your Cressy, your Murray. They actually do the same thing. They do what we want. And what we need is depth and how long the dive is while you're on the dive. This is not so important. What really is important is the surface time once you're up on the top. So when you're on the top, you should be able to look at your computer and see, 1, how deep your last dive was, 2, how long your last dive was, and 3, counting off your surface time. So say you look down and just for argument's sake, we say a minute was your dive time. Okay? And so with my recommendations of 3 minutes, 3 times your thing is a 3 minute. Now you can just just relax, boom, every now and then look at your computer. Okay, you're not quite there yet, you know, and then you look at your computer. Okay, you're now 3 minutes, you know, you're you're ready and recovered to dive. Now, if you're diving really deep, your recovery could well be more than 3 minutes. Okay? So we're going to have a little talk about that when you start getting to the 25 plus level about recovery times, having to take into account your nitrogen levels. However, at this point in time, get yourself a computer so that you know 3 times your dive time. Now, of course, we're spearfishers. We're there targeting fish. We want to bring home a good fish and put meat on the table, and this is how we work our recreation time. So you're on the surface and you've just come up from a dive and you might be up there a minute and a really good looking fish goes past. Well, you've got to have enough intelligence to work out what you're going to do about that. If you've been running 3 times your dive response and then you do 1 dive and you come up and you haven't quite got 3 times there, you might have 2 or 1.5 minutes, you're not running on the edge. You've got a little bit up your sleeve. It's going to be much easier for you to make the dive after a minute's recovery and have a crack at that fish. So we're not saying it's completely illegal to dive. Until your 3 minutes is up, what are you doing diving? We're not saying that, because that's, not being flexible and it's not understanding what we're doing. But we're talking about diving with enough leeway that we can make a decision, Okay, you've been floating along 2 minutes and there's this great looking bommy coming up in 20 meters and you see it, you want to check it out. Well, if you've been running at 3 minutes and or more on your dive recovery, that bommy now is quite accessible to you. If you haven't been and you're running close to the edge and you get up and you have a minute down there, all it takes is something, like a snapper or a long nose or a yellow-lipped emperor, something that is wary, and you could be down too long. You've been running on the edge, see? So this is the way we manage our dives to give ourselves a safe dive time, dive recovery. Now, just a point here, there's an important point is about deeper dives. It is quite possible when you're diving deep that you can get too much nitrogen in the blood. You know, you take a full breath hold and you go down 25, 30 meters, and you can get more nitrogen in your blood than can be shucked off in your dive recovery. When you start getting deeper, your recovery times should be getting more. Very important. We have had spearfishers in Australia with the bends, you know. And it's important that we take that into account once you get up to the level where you're diving plus 25 meters. Short recovery times is not on, and 3 times is probably going to be too short especially when you're diving around 30 meters. Okay, get long recovery times, and especially if you're a weekend warrior or you haven't gotten out that much, you're only getting out once a week or once every 2 weeks or something like that, you're not getting out regularly, your body gets used to it and will shuck it off faster if you're doing it more often. Okay, and you're going to see people who are great divers and they don't seem to have enough recovery time, but they're not getting bent. Well, you probably find that they're diving 3 or 4 times a week, and this is the difference. For us mere mortals, well, we work most of the time, and we'll get to dive out there once a week or once every 2 weeks, sometimes once every month or 2, you know, depending on when your free time and the weather allows us. So in that situation, it's important that you allow a great amount of recovery, you know. And I think, I'm not going to say more on that, but it's something that you need to investigate in if you're on that level. You also need to make sure you understand what it takes to get a person back who has the bends. So if you've got someone on the boat and he's got the symptoms, and you need to study those, he's got the symptoms, you need to know where to take him. Okay, the final thing I want to touch on here is who are the main people at risk? Now, we'd like to think, and it's kind of easy to go, that's the beginning divers, you know, they're going to make mistakes. Well, actually, the new divers are really driven by their carbon dioxide. They go down and they'll get a contraction, and it doesn't feel good. They haven't learnt how to tolerate contractions, how to tolerate the urge to breathe, how to go past the urge to breathe. This is something our divers learn as they move up. And what that occurs is they move into what I call the intermediate diver. Now, the intermediate divers sometimes are fabulous divers, able to dive 25, 30 meters, strong diving, big dive times, 2-minute plus dive times. These are your intermediate divers, often are your intermediate divers. And the hard thing about the intermediate diver is they're at the point where they know getting down to those levels and spending that time below the surface is going to get them great fish. But they haven't quite got to the level where they've done enough dives that they know exactly when to come up, no matter what. Now, in training in the pool, we have some good things going, is we learn when we're close. There are times when you come up and someone will look at you and go, you were close. You will do something like, the beginning of a samba or something, and you managed to get through it, or something like that. This is very good for a spearfisher. One, it teaches he's not immortal, and he has a limit. And the second one, it gets him to understand and feel what the body feels like when he gets close. Now, you should not be diving at anything more than about 60 to 70% of your abilities, even with a safety diver up there while you're in the ocean. If you're up past that, you need to have 2 or 3 safety divers. You need to get really on top of that, because you're now working in a dangerous level. So the intermediate diver, and we've lost them over the years. The intermediate diver is the one you've got to keep your eye on. Okay? The long-term divers, the old hands, don't think they are free of risk. No, they're diving depths that make the whole thing a bit more risky. But they will do things. They will tell their buddy, this is probably going to be a 30-meter dive. Or, look, I'm after this fish down here and it could be a longer dive, you know. And he'll tell their buddies that. The dive will be on it. Or he'll arrange two buddies. One to look after the rig line if he's using that, you know, and the other one to monitor the diver. So he is really, and remember, 9 times out of 10, the diver will have problems on the surface. So we've got 1 or 2 divers watching him. He's not going to disappear. Okay. So here we go. The long term is not without risk. But generally he's smart enough to talk to his divers, and he has gone enough times close to the edge that he goes, oh no, now's the time. I've got to get out of here, and he will surface. Okay, so you can work out yourselves where you are in that term, new person, intermediate diver, or long term, and you can take steps. You need to work out a plan, something that you do every dive, all through the day, to bring about safe diving. Now, this is involving recovery times. Okay, that's it. I hope to see you out there. Cheers.